Hello, my lovely rose garden, and welcome back to Creative Writing Basics. If this is your first video in the series, I strongly recommend checking out the playlist. While there is no hard and fast order to these videos, and you technically can watch them in any order, they do tend to build on each other. So far, we have talked about plots, characters, and character arcs. Today, we move on to world building. Before we get into it, please be sure to subscribe to the channel and consider supporting me on Patreon or Ko-fi if you want to continue seeing videos like this. I also want to make clear before we begin that these videos are called basics and not rules for a reason. This series is meant to give writers tools to create stories with. How and if you use those tools are up to you. There is no one right way to tell a story, and what works for one might not work for another. Please apply these tips and tricks as they best serve your purpose for telling your story. This is especially important to this video because world building is such a large and broad topic that there really is no one-size-fits-all lesson I can teach about it. What your story needs and how you will get that is part of your writing journey, not mine. So treat this video as a kind of world-building basics exercise to practice your world-building skills. Now then, what is world building? There are a few different terms you could use to describe this concept: developing setting, establishing time and place, and so on. Essentially, what it boils down to for me are these four questions. How does this world function? How does that impact the characters? How much of this is conveyed through character interactions? How much of this does the reader need to see? I previously posted a video where I detailed a lot of the world-building process for my current project, the Alliance Saga. However, that followed a slightly different procedure because it was a case of myself and the CarlottaStudios team working to take what started out as a fan project and turn it into an original work. Despite the number of changes we made, there was a not insignificant portion of the foundation already in place based on the things we could not change. See this video for more information about that. But what about when you are starting from the ground up? If you're like me when I started writing, your response might be a shrug and a, well, it's not important to the story, so why should I or the reader care about any of this stuff? And this is where I'm going to ask for a degree of trust. You presumably clicked on this video because you wanted my advice, and this is part of it. Yes, it is a lot of work, and yes, as you can probably tell by the last of those four questions, not all of it is going to make it onto the page in a way a reader will consciously notice. But my mind always goes back to the Frank Serafine quote on sound design in film. When it's bad, you notice. When it's great, you're immersed. Readers might not always be aware of well-crafted world building, but they will notice if it's not there or handled poorly. The four basic questions that I include here should be general enough to be applicable to any genre, including temporary. Yes, even stories set in the real world of the modern day do require some degree of world building. Let's start with the first question. How does this world function? What I mean by this is, what are the basic building blocks of the setting? Are you writing a story set in a modern city, an enchanted forest, a post-apocalyptic bunker? What are the geographical features of your setting? How does that impact things like food production, healthcare, weather, and other aspects of daily life? What time period is your story set in, and how does that impact daily life in your story? Is the time period a significant part of your setting? By which I mean, are you banking on 80s nostalgia by cramming as many 80s throwbacks into your setting details as possible? Did you set your story in the 30s in order to draw parallels between the Great Depression and the current state of the US economy? There's a lot of questions to answer within this first bracket, and these are things that you as the author will want to know to help guide your storytelling, at least when it comes to editing the final version of your manuscript. But what about the part the readers will see directly? That's where we get to question 2. How does all of that impact the characters? I make it no secret that I'm a character-driven reader in general, but even if I wasn't, the characters are still the lens through which the readers are going to view the story, and thus how the readers are going to interact with the setting. The experiences of a movie starlet and an unemployed factory worker in the 30s are going to be vastly different, and those differences are going to change how the story is told and what the readers take away from it. So here are some more questions to ask yourself. What is your character's personal history and background? What is your character's socioeconomic status? Where in the world does your character live? What industries is that place known for, if any? What do they or their family members do for a living? Who are your character's neighbors and what do they do? Does your character even know their neighbors? Who are the privileged members of society? Who are the marginalized? Where does your character fall when it comes to those categories? Are there any places in this setting that your character has always dreamed of going to? All this is going to get us closer to questions 3 and 4. How much of this is conveyed through character interactions, and how much does the reader need to see? So you've got all this world-building information that your reader is never going to see, and you have the stuff that's important to understanding the plot, character motivations, and themes that definitely need to be in the text. You generally want to avoid info dumping all of it on the reader because that can be overwhelming and, in the worst cases, boring, but you also don't want things to be left too vague or up to interpretation because that can lead to readers fundamentally misunderstanding core ideas or not being able to visualize the world at all. And here is where only experience, beta readers, and critique partners can guide you. You will have to find a balance between what to tell and what to show, and what to keep hidden. And most of these show is going to come through in character interactions, whether that means interactions between characters or interactions the characters have with the world and the things they notice. When done effectively, this not only gives the reader more details about the setting, but also helps them understand the character and where they fit into the world. For example, in Stellar Eclipse, Azzy starts off being amazed by everything he sees in the city of Marina Delta because he spent his entire life shut inside one house and is easily overwhelmed by it all. As the series goes on, he starts to notice the inequalities present in how the city is designed, like in the 3rd book, Echoed Thunder, when he and Eureka have to make a not insignificant commute to the wealthy side of the city to have access to doctors' offices. These observations tell us about Azzy's mental state and how his awareness of the world around him has developed between Book 1 and Book 3. As I've said in the past, plot, character, and setting are not independent facets of a story. Each of these things, when handled well and thoroughly developed, have a significant impact on the others, and the outcomes would fundamentally change if any one of them was significantly altered. Which is great. It's part of what makes fanfiction so fun. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, where and when your character lives, whether that's Victorian England, a fantasy world inspired by Ethiopian mythology, or modern Japan, should impact the plot and characters in a way that is tangible to the reader. That is the building part of world building. And that is why world building is usually the last topic I discuss when it comes to plot, character, and setting, because so much of my world building impacts and is impacted by plot and character. But what do you think? Please be sure to let me know in the comments, and thank you for making it this far through the video. If you are still listening, please leave me a feather or a pencil emoji in the comments and tell me a little bit about the world that you're building in your own stories. Thank you so much for watching, and a special thank you to my patrons. If you'd like to see your name here or in the description below, please consider joining my Patreon. Your support means so much to me and allows me to continue making content. If you want to support my content in different ways, consider buying my books, donating on Ko-fi, subscribing to the channel, or even just giving this video a like and comment. Any and everything is appreciated so much. Keep growing till next time, Rose Garden!